Hey guys, tonight we're taking a stroll down the sultry, gas-lit streets of old New Orleans, stepping away from grand theaters and desolate mansions and into a place with a history that's a little more intimate. Imagine, if you will, a building with faded velvet wallpaper, the air thick with the ghost of jasmine perfume and the faint, almost imperceptible echo of a smoky jazz piano. We're about to push open the doors to a historic New Orleans brothel, a place where the spirits are less interested in rattling chains and more concerned with whether your tie is straight or if your champagne glass is full. This isn't a journey for the easily scandalized, but one for those who appreciate a story with a bit of spice and a lot of spirit. Honestly, you probably wouldn't survive a night here in its heyday, not because of the ghosts, but because you'd likely lose all your money in a poker game and get your hat stolen by a phantom with a flair for fashion. Welcome to Emberlight Echoes, the sanctuary where ghost stories are designed not to give you nightmares, but to be the perfect, peculiar lullaby. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're winding down tonight and what time it is for you. Perhaps you're listening from a rainy evening in Seattle, or maybe it's a warm, sunny afternoon in Sydney. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're now standing on a quiet cobblestone street in what was once the most famous and infamous neighborhood in New Orleans. The air hangs thick and humid, heavy with the scent of sweet olive, damp earth, and the distant, tantalizing aroma of Creole cooking. Before you is a tall, narrow building, its ornate wrought iron balconies dripping with overgrown ivy, looking like delicate black lace against the fading twilight. The paint on the shutters is peeling, and the grand wooden door, once a portal to a world of illicit luxury, now seems to hold its secrets tightly. This is the former site of the Gilded Cage, our fictional name for one of Storyville's most notorious and high-class brothels. Forget your typical tales of tragic, mournful spirits. The ghost said to reside here is of a different breed entirely. She is, by all accounts, a charming, flirty, and endlessly mischievous specter, a woman who ran her house with an iron will and a silken glove, and who, it seems, has never quite clocked out from her eternal shift. This isn't a place that inspires terror, but rather a profound sense of bemused curiosity, and perhaps the faint, unsettling feeling that someone unseen has just complimented your choice of attire. The question we'll be exploring tonight isn't just if this place is haunted, but why its resident spirit is so incredibly, unapologetically fond of a good-natured prank, especially at the expense of any gentleman who walks through her door. You're now standing on the imaginary threshold of the Gilded Cage, the humid New Orleans air clinging to you like a velvet shawl. To truly understand the playful, flirty nature of its resident spirit, you must first immerse yourself in the world she once commanded, Storyville. This wasn't just a neighborhood. It was a legendary, sprawling social experiment, a legally sanctioned district for vice and pleasure that operated from 1897 to 1917. It was a place of stark contrasts, where opulent mansions stood just blocks away from ramshackle shacks, and where the air was thick with the revolutionary sounds of early jazz, the clinking of poker chips, and the hushed negotiations of pleasure. It's a common historical event for cities, particularly port cities like New Orleans, to develop designated districts for vice as a means of containment and regulation. Storyville, however, took this concept to an unprecedented level of fame and notoriety. Imagine a 17-block area where the normal rules of society were playfully and profitably suspended. The streets would have been a chaotic, vibrant river of humanity, sailors fresh off the ships, pockets full of pay, wealthy cotton brokers looking for a discreet evening of entertainment, wide-eyed tourists seeking a taste of the city's infamous nightlife, and the countless musicians, dancers, and workers who made the entire enterprise run. The architecture itself told a story of ambition and hierarchy. You had the cribs, tiny one-room shacks where the city's most desperate women worked, and then you had the grand establishments like our Gilded Cage. These were opulent, multi-story mansions run by powerful, business-savvy women known as madams. These were not places of squalor. They were palaces of pleasure, decorated with crystal chandeliers, plush carpets, fine art, and staffed by women known for their beauty, wit, and conversational skills. It's a strange but true fact that many of these high-class establishments published blue books, which were essentially guidebooks to the district, listing the names, addresses, and sometimes even the specialties of the women working in each house. It was a remarkably open and organized system, a stark contrast to the hidden back-alley nature of such businesses in other cities. The air in Storyville would have been a heady cocktail of scents: expensive French perfume, cheap beer, spicy Creole food, and the sweet, cloying smell of cigar smoke. But most importantly, it was filled with music. This was the crucible where jazz was born. Legendary musicians like Jelly Roll Morton, Buddy Bolden, and a young Louis Armstrong honed their craft in the saloons and dance halls of Storyville, their improvisational, blues-infused melodies providing the constant, pulsating soundtrack to the district's nightly drama. You can almost hear the faint, ghostly notes of a ragtime piano drifting from an open window, a sound that has become inextricably linked with the very soul of New Orleans. The women who ran these houses, the madams, were figures of immense power and influence within this unique ecosystem. They were not just managers, they were entrepreneurs, matriarchs, and often local celebrities. They had to be sharp, resourceful, and possess an iron will to navigate the complex social and political landscape of the district. They managed large staffs, dealt with corrupt politicians and police, and cultivated a clientele of the city's most powerful men. Historians still debate the true extent of the autonomy and power these women wielded, but it's undeniable that within the boundaries of Storyville, they were queens ruling over their own small, opulent kingdoms. It is from this world of glamour, grit, and groundbreaking music that our resident spirit, the charismatic Madame Delphine, emerged. To understand her, you must understand the world she not only inhabited, but mastered. A world where charm was a currency, wit was a weapon, and a well-run house of earthly delights was the ultimate symbol of success and independence. As you imagine yourself walking these phantom streets, the gaslights casting a hazy glow on the cobblestones, you begin to understand that this isn't just a setting for a ghost story. It's a lost world, a legendary moment in American history whose echoes still resonate today. You're still standing in the phantom-filled streets of Storyville, the ghost of a jazz trumpet still echoing in your ears. We've established the world that our spirit once ruled, a world of opulence, risk, and carefully managed pleasure. Now it's time to formally meet the queen of this spectral domain, the woman whose personality is so potent, so vibrant, that not even death could evict her from her beloved establishment. Her name, according to the whispers of local lore, was Madame Delphine, and she was, by all accounts, a force of nature. This isn't the story of a tragic, wilting flower. This is the story of the shrewd, charismatic, and impeccably dressed gardener who owned the entire greenhouse. It's like comparing a sad, forgotten silent film star to a powerhouse studio mogul who ran the entire show. Both are from the past, but their energy is worlds apart. Madame Delphine, as the legend paints her, was the proprietor of the Gilded Cage during the peak of Storyville's golden era. She wasn't just a manager, she was the architect of its success, the heart of its allure. Imagine a woman in her 40s, always dressed in the height of fashion. Think elegant silk gowns, elaborate feathered hats, and just a hint of too much diamond jewelry. Her posture would have been perfect, her gaze direct and intelligent, missing nothing. She would have moved through the lavishly decorated rooms of her house with an air of absolute authority, a quiet smile playing on her lips, a smile that was both welcoming and a clear warning not to be trifled with. She was the perfect blend of Southern charm and cutthroat business acumen. A common historical event during this period was the rise of powerful female entrepreneurs in unconventional industries, women who carved out empires in worlds dominated by men. Delphine was the epitome of this archetype. Her backstory, woven from fragments of city records and the rich tapestry of oral history, is one of resilience. She wasn't born into wealth. It's believed she arrived in New Orleans with next to nothing, perhaps as a young woman escaping a less fortunate life elsewhere. She learned early on that in a city like this, a woman's greatest assets were her wit, her charm, and her ability to understand the complex desires of powerful men. She worked her way up, from a girl in one of the lesser houses to the trusted confidant of a retiring madam, eventually saving and scheming enough to purchase her own establishment. The Gilded Cage was her creation, her masterpiece. She personally oversaw every detail, from the choice of velvet for the curtains to the brand of champagne served to her exclusive clientele. She understood that success in her business wasn't just about providing pleasure. It was about providing an illusion, a fantasy of luxury, discretion, and sophisticated companionship. It's a strange but true fact that many of the most successful madams of Storyville, like the infamous Lulu White or Josie Arlington, were celebrated public figures, their wealth and influence openly acknowledged, if not always respected, by the city's elite. Madame Delphine would have been among this legendary sorority. She would have hosted the city's most powerful politicians, wealthiest businessmen, and visiting dignitaries. Her parlor would have been a place where secrets were whispered, deals were made, and fortunes were won and lost over a game of poker. And through it all, she would have presided with a grace and intelligence that commanded respect. She was known to be a brilliant conversationalist, able to discuss politics, literature, and the price of cotton with equal ease. She wasn't just selling an evening's entertainment. She was selling access, influence, and the thrill of being in the city's most exclusive inner circle. It's like trying to get a reservation at the hottest, most exclusive restaurant in the world. Only the main course is a fascinating conversation with the most powerful woman in town. But for all her business savvy, Delphine was also known for her playful, almost theatrical sense of humor. She loved a good joke, a clever turn of phrase, and, according to the legends, a bit of light-hearted mischief. She was known to playfully flirt with her most esteemed clients, her husky laugh echoing through the rooms. She might subtly untie a gentleman's bow tie with a wink, or leave a single perfect lipstick mark on the rim of his champagne glass as a teasing calling card. These weren't acts of impropriety. They were part of the performance, part of the charm that made her and her establishment so irresistible. Historians still debate the true level of social freedom experienced by women in Storyville, but figures like Delphine demonstrate a remarkable degree of agency and self-determination within the confines of their society. Her spirit, as it is reported today, seems to be a perfect continuation of this personality. The playful pranks, the faint scent of jasmine perfume, the echo of a husky laugh, these aren't the actions of a tormented soul. They are the lingering, joyful echoes of a woman who was the undisputed queen of her castle, a woman who reveled in her power, her wit, and her unique brand of hospitality, and who, it seems, has simply decided that the party at the Gilded Cage should never truly end. You're still standing in the imaginary perfumed parlor of the Gilded Cage, the charismatic, powerful image of Madame Delphine firmly etched in your mind. We've met the woman, the legend, the shrewd entrepreneur who ruled this corner of Storyville. Now let's explore how her larger-than-life personality translates into her spectral activities. Just as in life, her haunting is not a singular, monotonous act. It's a full repertoire of sensory experiences, a carefully curated performance designed to amuse, to mystify, and to gently remind any visitor that this is, and always will be, her house. It's like a modern smart home that, instead of just controlling the lights, also has settings for subtle haunting, playful prank, and lingering scent of forgotten opulence. It's a multi-sensory experience from beyond the grave. The most immediate and most frequently reported manifestation is the scent. Long before anyone sees or hears a thing, they often smell her. It's the distinct, intoxicating aroma of jasmine perfume, a fragrance that was famously her signature scent in life. It doesn't slowly seep into a room. It appears suddenly, intensely, as if someone has just walked past you, leaving a fragrant trail in their wake. You might be standing in a dusty, long-abandoned bedroom, smelling nothing but aged wood and decay, and suddenly the air will be thick with the rich, sweet scent of fresh jasmine. It lingers for a moment, a beautiful, anachronistic anomaly, and then, just as quickly, it vanishes completely. It's a common historical event that certain scents become powerful triggers for memory and emotion. For those who knew the stories of Madame Delphine, this scent is an immediate, undeniable announcement of her presence. Paired with the perfume is the sound of her laughter. This isn't a chilling, blood-curdling scream or a sorrowful moan. It's described as a low, throaty, and deeply amused chuckle, a sound that is both husky and elegant, filled with a worldly confidence. It never comes from a specific direction. Instead, it seems to echo from the very walls themselves, a disembodied expression of mirth that often follows one of her minor pranks. Imagine you're a visitor, searching for the hat that has mysteriously vanished from your head. As you're looking around in bewilderment, you might hear that faint, husky laugh seeming to come from the hallway, a spectral gotcha from your unseen hostess. It's a strange but true fact that low-frequency auditory phenomena are often difficult for the human ear to pinpoint, which can lead to the sensation of a sound being all-encompassing or directionless. Whether it's a trick of acoustics or a genuine paranormal event, the effect is the same, a feeling of being playfully observed by an unseen and very amused entity. These primary manifestations, the perfume and the laughter, are the foundation of her haunting. They are her calling cards, the way she announces her presence without ever having to reveal herself fully. They set a tone that is not frightening, but is instead intriguing, sophisticated, and undeniably flirtatious. It's the difference between a jump scare in a horror movie and a perfectly timed, witty aside in a classic film noir. One makes you scream, the other makes you lean in closer, wanting to know more. Historians still debate the psychological impact of sensory experiences, like smell and sound, on the perception of paranormal events. It's argued that if a location is already believed to be haunted, the brain is more likely to interpret ambiguous sensory input as supernatural. A musty smell might become phantom perfume, and the creak of a floorboard might become ghostly laughter. However, at the Gilded Cage, the reports are too specific and too consistent to be easily dismissed. It's not just any perfume, it's always jasmine. It's not just any laugh, it's always a low, husky chuckle. This specificity suggests something more than just random environmental noise. It suggests a personality, a character. It's the ghost of a woman who, even in death, refuses to be anything less than utterly, captivatingly herself. She's not a vague, shadowy figure. She is Madame Delphine, and she wants to make sure you know it. Her scent and her laughter are the opening lines of her eternal performance, a performance designed to remind every person who enters her home that while the party may have ended decades ago, the hostess has never left. And as you stand there, the phantom scent of jasmine tickling your senses, You can't help but feel like you've just been made part of a very exclusive, very old, and very amusing secret. You're still breathing in the phantom jasmine of the Gilded Cage, the spectral, husky laugh of Madame Delphine, a faint echo in your ears. Her presence has been established, a fragrant, amusing calling card left for any who enter her domain. But her interactions go far beyond mere atmospheric hauntings. Madame Delphine, it seems, was not a woman to remain a passive observer, either in life or in death. She was a woman of action, of wit, and of direct, if playful, engagement. And it is in these specific, mischievous pranks that her personality truly shines through, transforming her from a simple ghost into a full-blown poltergeist. A poltergeist with impeccable taste and a wicked sense of humor, that is. It's like discovering that the friendly neighborhood cat doesn't just like to be petted, but also has a penchant for hiding your car keys and leaving single, enigmatic paw prints on your morning newspaper. It's a level of interaction that is both baffling and undeniably charming. The pranks attributed to Madame Delphine almost exclusively target the male visitors to the house. This specificity is a fascinating aspect of her legend, suggesting a continuation of the flirtatious, powerful dynamic she would have cultivated in life. It's not that she's malevolent towards men. On the contrary, she seems to be utterly fascinated by them, treating them as her eternal, unsuspecting playthings. One of her most famous and frequently reported antics is the hat trick. A gentleman might place his hat, be it a bowler, a fedora, or a modern-day baseball cap, on a coat rack in the foyer. He turns his back for a moment, perhaps to admire a painting or speak with a tour guide, and when he turns back, the hat is gone. A frantic, confused search ensues, only for the hat to be discovered later in the most improbable of places. Perched atop a tall porcelain vase in the parlor, resting on the head of a marble bust, or, in one particularly amusing account, found sitting neatly in the center of a bidet in an upstairs bathroom. It's never damaged, never thrown, always placed with a sense of deliberate theatrical absurdity. Then there is the case of the untied tie. This is a more personal, almost intimate prank. A man, perhaps feeling a little smug about his perfectly knotted Windsor or bow tie, will suddenly feel a slight, inexplicable tugging at his collar. He'll reach up, only to find the knot has been completely, impossibly undone, his tie now hanging limply. There's no gust of wind, no one standing near him, just the faint, lingering scent of jasmine and the distant echo of a throaty chuckle. It's a bold, flirtatious gesture from beyond the veil, a playful critique of his formal wear from a woman who undoubtedly saw more than her fair share of them. You can almost picture her spectral, manicured hands deftly and silently undoing the silk, a ghostly smirk on her face. It's like having a fashion-conscious ghost who simply cannot abide a poorly executed four-in-hand knot. It's a strange but true fact that poltergeist activity often involves the manipulation of small personal items, a phenomenon that parapsychologists suggest requires a significant amount of focused, directed energy. Perhaps the most charming and most definitive of Delphine's pranks is the lipstick-stained glass. This is her ultimate calling card, a mark of her presence that is impossible to explain away. A visitor might be enjoying a drink, a glass of water on a tour, or perhaps a glass of champagne at a private event held in the house. They set the glass down for a moment, and when they pick it up again, there it is. A perfect, bright red lipstick mark on the rim, exactly where their lips had been. It's a clean, crisp print, not a smudge, as if a woman with perfectly applied lipstick had taken a delicate, unseen sip. This has been reported countless times, by skeptics and believers alike, and remains one of the most compelling pieces of evidence for Delphine's intelligent, interactive haunting. A common historical event during the early 20th century was the popularization of bold, red lipstick, which became a symbol of female confidence and a departure from the more demure Victorian era. Delphine, ever the modern and powerful woman, was said to have favored a vibrant red. Historians still debate the cultural significance and evolution of makeup trends, but for Delphine, it seems her signature shade has become her spectral one as well. These pranks, the hidden hats, the untied ties, the phantom lipstick, are not the actions of a sad or angry spirit. They are the confident, playful, and utterly characteristic gestures of a woman who is still the life of the party, a hostess who ensures that no gentleman ever leaves her house without a good story to tell and a lingering sense of bewilderment. You're still a guest in the lavish, spectral parlor of the Gilded Cage, the phantom scent of jasmine, and the memory of a lipstick-stained glass still fresh in your mind. We've explored Madame Delphine's more direct, personal pranks, the flirtatious, mischievous acts that speak to her bold and engaging personality. But her haunting isn't limited to these one-on-one interactions. The very atmosphere of the house seems to be saturated with the echoes of its past, with residual energies that play out like a never-ending ghostly party. These are the whispers from the walls, the phantom sounds of a bygone era that provide a constant, subtle soundtrack to the building's quiet, modern-day existence. It's like having a neighbor who perpetually plays very faint, very old, but very good music at all hours of the day and night. You can't quite make out all the tunes, but it certainly adds character to the building. One of the most consistently reported auditory phenomena is the sound of phantom jazz. This isn't surprising, given the house's location in the heart of what was once Storyville, the very crucible where jazz was forged. But the sounds heard within the Gilded Cage are not the loud, boisterous tunes of a saloon. Instead, they are described as faint, almost cool jazz melodies, typically a lone piano or the soft, mournful wail of a saxophone. It's the kind of music you'd expect to hear in a sophisticated, smoky lounge late at night. The sounds often seem to drift from the main parlor, the room where Delphine would have entertained her most exclusive clients. A common historical event is the evolution of musical styles to fit different social settings. The raucous music of the dance halls would have been very different from the more intimate, sophisticated jazz played in the high-class establishments. You might be standing in the quiet hallway, the only sound the creak of your own footsteps on the old wood, and suddenly, you'll hear it. A soft, complex piano riff, a melody that is both beautiful and melancholic, drifting from the empty parlor. It lasts for just a few moments, a ghostly fragment of a long-finished set, and then fades back into the silence. Then there is the clinking of poker chips. The back rooms of establishments like the Gilded Cage were notorious for their high-stakes card games, where fortunes were won and lost on the turn of a single card. Madame Delphine herself was reportedly a shrewd and skilled player. Visitors and staff have often reported hearing the distinct, unmistakable sound of poker chips being stacked or shuffled, a soft, rhythmic clatter coming from rooms that are now completely empty. It's a sound that speaks of wealth, risk, and the quiet tension of a high-stakes game. It's a strange but true fact that the sound of clay poker chips has a very specific, dry, and sharp acoustic quality that is hard to replicate, which makes these auditory reports all the more compelling. Historians still debate the true extent of illegal gambling in Storyville, but it was undoubtedly a central and accepted part of the district's economy and social life. The ghostly sound of a phantom poker game is a potent reminder of the immense sums of money and the high emotional stakes that were a part of this house's daily reality. The whispers are different here than in other haunted locations. They are not the sorrowful moans or terrifying threats. The whispers at the Gilded Cage are described as sounding like a lively party heard from another room. You can't make out the individual words, but you can discern the cadence of flirtatious conversation, the murmur of hushed secrets, and the occasional burst of throaty feminine laughter. Always the laughter. It's as if you are standing just outside the door of a grand, exclusive party, a party that ended a century ago, but whose energy was so potent it left a permanent joyful stain on the very atmosphere of the house. You're not being haunted by a single entity, but by the very essence of a good time. It's like putting a seashell to your ear and hearing the ocean, only in this case, you put your ear to the silence and hear the ghost of a fabulous soiree. These sounds, the jazz, the poker chips, the party murmurs, are likely a form of residual haunting, an energetic recording of the events that were most common and emotionally charged within these walls. The house absorbed the joy, the tension, the music, and the laughter of its golden era, and now it plays them back in faint, ethereal echoes for those quiet enough to listen. It is the house's own memory, a beautiful ghostly playlist of its greatest hits. You're still surrounded by the phantom echoes of the Gilded Cage, the faint sounds of jazz and spectral poker games a testament to its lively past. We've explored the charismatic persona of Madame Delphine and the playful, flirtatious nature of her hauntings. It paints a picture of a spirit utterly at peace, forever presiding over the eternal party she crafted in life. But even in a story so filled with amusement and light-hearted mischief, there is often a hidden layer of melancholy, a quiet, poignant secret that adds a profound depth to the narrative. And in the case of Madame Delphine, that secret is bound to a single precious object, a lost locket. It's like finding a single tear-stained page tucked away in an otherwise hilarious book. It doesn't negate the humor, but it adds a surprising, heartbreaking complexity to the story. The legend of the lost locket is one of the more intimate and less frequently told tales associated with the house, often shared in hushed tones by those who feel they have a deeper connection to its history. The locket itself is described as a beautiful, ornate piece of Victorian jewelry, gold with intricate filigree, and perhaps a single small diamond at its center. It wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was Delphine's most treasured possession, a gift from a man she loved, a man she could never be with publicly. This was her forbidden love, a story that ran parallel to her public life as a powerful, independent madam. A common historical event in the 19th century, particularly for women in unconventional or socially marginalized professions, was the necessity of leading a double life, keeping personal affections and vulnerabilities hidden from a judgmental public eye. Delphine, for all her power within Storyville, was no exception. The man, whose identity is lost to history, was said to be from one of New Orleans' oldest and most respected Creole families. A public relationship between them would have been unthinkable, a scandal that would have destroyed his social standing and likely jeopardized her business. So, their love affair was a thing of secret meetings and stolen moments, a quiet, intense flame burning brightly in the shadows of her opulent house. The locket was his gift to her, a tangible symbol of a love that had to remain hidden. It reportedly contained 2 tiny portraits, one of him and one of her. It was something she never took off, a constant private reminder of the one person who saw beyond the formidable madame to the woman beneath. You can almost feel the weight of that secret, the bittersweet reality of a love that was both profoundly real and socially impossible. It's like owning the most beautiful, priceless painting in the world, but being forced to keep it forever covered in a dusty sheet in your attic. Tragically, as the story goes, the locket was lost. One night, during a particularly boisterous and crowded party at the Gilded Cage, the delicate chain is said to have broken. In the chaos of the evening, the music, the laughter, the constant swirl of guests, The locket fell unnoticed to the floor, to be swept away with the discarded cigar butts and fallen champagne corks of the night. It's a strange but true fact that many historical accounts of lost jewels or treasures are often tied to periods of great social upheaval or celebration, where the chaos of the moment leads to a single, devastating loss. Delphine was, by all accounts, heartbroken. She and her staff searched for days, turning the house upside down, but the locket, her one precious link to her secret love, was never found. Historians still debate the veracity of this specific tale, as it relies entirely on oral tradition, but its emotional power is undeniable. This story transforms the nature of her haunting. Perhaps she isn't just lingering to enjoy the eternal party. Perhaps she is also searching. The faint whispers heard in empty rooms might not be party chatter, but her own soft, desperate questions to an empty house. Have you seen it? The cold spots might be the result of her spectral form anxiously gliding through the rooms, endlessly retracing her steps from that fateful night. Even her playful pranks could be seen in a new, more poignant light. Could the moving of a gentleman's hat be her, subconsciously searching his pockets for her lost treasure? Could the untying of a bow tie be the nervous, ethereal fumbling of a spirit, distracted by her unending quest? It adds a layer of quiet desperation to her character, the profound sorrow of a woman who has lost the one thing that truly mattered to her. The lost locket is the missing piece of her story, the silent, aching void at the heart of her otherwise vibrant, spectral existence. And as you stand in the quiet parlor, you might find yourself instinctively scanning the floorboards, hoping to catch the faint golden glint of a lost treasure, and in doing so, finally bring peace to the mischievous and perhaps heartbroken spirit of Madame Delphine. You're still absorbing the poignant tale of the lost locket, a story that adds a layer of heartbreaking depth to the playful spirit of Madame Delphine. Her haunting is a complex tapestry, woven with threads of joy, mischief, and a quiet, unending search. For decades, her legend was the domain of locals, a cherished piece of neighborhood folklore shared in hushed tones over cups of chicory coffee. But in the booming, boisterous era of the 1920s, a time of journalistic fervor and a national fascination with the lurid and the sensational, it was only a matter of time before the outside world came knocking, and it did, in the form of a skeptical, ambitious young journalist from a Chicago newspaper. This is the story of his encounter, a tale that transformed a firm non-believer into a bewildered and perhaps slightly embarrassed storyteller. It's like watching a hardcore tech blogger who only believes in specs and benchmarks suddenly have to write a glowing review for a magic wand that actually works. The professional bewilderment is almost as entertaining as the magic itself. Let's call our journalist Thomas. You can picture him. A young man in a sharp suit and a fedora, a notebook perpetually in hand, his face set with the cynical, world-weary expression of someone who has seen it all and believes in none of it. A common historical event of the Roaring Twenties was the rise of sensationalist yellow journalism, where newspapers competed to publish the most shocking and eye-catching stories, often blurring the line between fact and fiction. Thomas was a product of this era, sent to New Orleans not to find the truth, but to find a juicy story, a colorful tale of the city's decadent, fading past, to entertain his readers back home. He'd heard the whispers about Storyville and the legendary houses of pleasure, and the tale of a flirty ghost in one of the old, abandoned establishments sounded like the perfect, slightly scandalous, human interest piece. He arrived at the Gilded Cage, now a shadow of its former self, perhaps a quiet boarding house or simply a decaying relic, with the express purpose of debunking the legend. He would have interviewed the locals, a smirk playing on his lips as they recounted their tales of phantom perfume and moving hats. He likely scribbled in his notebook, "Local population prone to fanciful superstitions, likely fueled by humidity and cheap liquor." He would have spoken with former staff, who might have shared their more personal, heartfelt experiences with the madam's ghost, only for him to jot down, "Former employees exhibit strong emotional attachment to the place, memories likely embellished by nostalgia." It's a strange but true fact that many early investigations into paranormal phenomena were conducted by journalists or writers, whose accounts often shaped public perception for generations, regardless of their scientific validity. Historians still debate the role of the press in either popularizing or sensationalizing local folklore during the early 20th century. Thomas, in his cynical quest for a story, was an active participant in this very process. To get a real feel for the place, and to add some atmospheric detail to his article, he decided to spend a night in the building, perhaps renting a room in what was once one of the lavish upstairs chambers. He would have settled in, the silence of the old house a stark contrast to the noisy modern world he was used to. He probably sat at a dusty desk, a bottle of whiskey at his elbow, and began to write his scathing, witty dismissal of the whole affair. He would have scoffed at the scent of jasmine, attributing it to old rotting flowers in the overgrown garden. He would have dismissed any faint sounds as the creaking of an old house, or the wind whistling through the ill-fitting window frames. You can almost feel his smug satisfaction, his intellectual superiority, as he prepared to expose the charming, foolish superstitions of this quaint southern town. But then, as the night wore on, things began to happen. Small things at first. The pen he had just set down on his desk was suddenly on the other side of the room. He would have frowned, stood up, retrieved it, and dismissed it as his own carelessness. Then, perhaps his perfectly knotted necktie, the very symbol of his modern professional self, would have come undone, a baffling, inexplicable event that would have caused a flicker of genuine annoyance. He would have retied it, more forcefully this time, perhaps with a curse muttered under his breath. But the true turning point, the moment that shattered his cynical composure, was, of course, the hat. He had placed his prized fedora on the bedpost. As he sat writing, he might have felt a sudden, inexplicable chill, a draft that seemed to have no source. When he looked up, the hat was gone. Not on the floor, not on the chair, but completely, utterly vanished. He would have searched the room, his annoyance growing into a frantic, bewildered frustration. And then he would have found it. Perhaps he opened the door to his room, only to find the hat resting perfectly on the doorknob of the room across the hall. Or, as one version of the legend goes, he found it sitting on top of his own head, placed there silently, impossibly, while he had been completely preoccupied. The story ends with Thomas, the cynical journalist, sitting in stunned silence, his meticulously crafted article about local superstitions lying forgotten on the desk, as the faint, husky, and undeniably amused laughter of Madame Delphine echoed from just beyond the door. He had come for a story, and he had certainly found one, just not the one he had been planning to write. You're still breathing in the phantom scent of jasmine and dust in Piper's Opera House, the poignant story of Eleonora's lost love echoing in the profound silence. Her personal tragedy, the love affair with the miner Silas cut short by a disaster in the Savage Mine, adds a deep layer of sorrow to her gentle haunting. But her story is inextricably linked to the story of the town itself. The same forces that brought her here, the immense, intoxicating wealth of the Comstock lode, were also destined to fade, leaving the grand opera house and perhaps its resident spirit in a state of suspended animation. To understand the persistence of Eleonora's echo, you must also understand the slow, quiet decline of the world she knew. It's like watching a vibrant, bustling city in a time-lapse video, only to see the lights flicker and dim, the crowds thin, and the grand buildings slowly fall into a state of elegant decay. The boom of Virginia City was, by its very nature, finite. It was built on a mountain of silver, and once that silver began to run out, the town's very reason for being began to disappear. A common historical event in the history of the American West is the boom and bust cycle of mining towns. Places that erupted into bustling metropolises almost overnight could just as quickly become ghost towns when the mines played out. In the late 1870s and 1880s, the silver production of the Comstock lode began to dwindle. The once unimaginably rich veins of ore became harder and more expensive to access. The initial frenzy of easy wealth gave way to the harsh economic realities of deep shaft mining. As the silver dried up, so did the fortunes, and with them, the people. The speculators, the investors, and the legions of hopeful miners began to move on, chasing the next big strike in other parts of the country. You can imagine the slow, almost imperceptible shift in the town's atmosphere. The boisterous, 24-hour energy would have quieted. The constant clang of pickaxes would have become less frequent, replaced by a more somber, echoing silence. Saloons that were once packed to the rafters would have had more empty stools than patrons. The ornate mansions built by the Bonanza Kings might have started to look a little less grand, their owners perhaps quietly selling off assets to cover their losses. It's the slow, deflating feeling of a party that has gone on just a little too long, where the music has faded and guests are starting to slip out the back door. For Piper's opera house, this decline would have been particularly poignant. The lavish spending that had once filled its velvet seats began to wane. The world-class traveling acts that once made the arduous journey to Virginia City might have started to bypass it for more prosperous venues. To hear her full story, watch the linked video now. It's a strange but true fact that John Piper himself, the visionary behind the opera house, faced immense financial struggles during this period, fighting to keep the theater alive as the town around it slowly contracted. He was a showman to the very end, but even his legendary optimism couldn't hold back the tide of economic reality. Historians still debate the precise timeline and economic factors that led to Virginia City's decline, but the impact was clear. The population, which had peaked at around 25,000 people, began a steady, inexorable decline. The grand stage that had hosted presidents, world-famous actors, and the toast of society now saw more empty nights than full houses. You can almost feel the shift within the theater itself. The air, once thick with the energy of 1,000 hopeful souls, would have grown stiller, dustier. The silence between performances would have grown longer, deeper. For Eleonora's spirit, this slow decline must have been a peculiar and perhaps a very lonely experience. The stage she loved, the place where she felt most alive, was falling silent. The appreciative audiences she craved were dwindling. Her phantom aria, once perhaps a joyful echo of a recent performance, might have taken on a more mournful, solitary quality. Was she singing to an empty house because she chose to, or because there was no one left to listen? It's a question that adds another layer of complexity to her haunting. Was her spirit tied not just to the building, but to the vibrant, chaotic energy of the boomtown itself? And as that energy faded, did her own spectral presence become more pronounced? A quiet sentinel standing guard over a fading dream? Perhaps. Her clumsiness, the knocking over of props, was a subconscious attempt to recreate the bustling, chaotic energy of a busy backstage that was now mostly silent. It's like a retired athlete who still goes to the empty stadium just to feel the echo of the roaring crowd. The decline of Virginia City is a crucial part of Eleonora's story. It provides the perfect backdrop for a persistent haunting of that grand, beautiful theater, rich with history and emotion, slowly being enveloped by silence and time, leaving only the faintest whispers of its golden age and the enduring, beautiful voice of its most devoted performer. You're still sitting, in the quiet, contemplating the very nature of Eleonora's presence. We've played devil's advocate, exploring the rational, scientific explanations for the phenomena at Piper's Opera House. The peculiar acoustics, the drafts from the old building, the geological quirks of a town built on a honeycomb of mines, they all offer plausible, if somewhat less enchanting, reasons for the phantom area and the subtle chills. It's a neat, tidy package that allows the logical part of your brain to rest easy. But as you let the silence of the theater settle around you once more, you realize that these explanations, for all their scientific merit, feel incomplete. They fail to capture the very soul of the story, the consistent, character-driven nature of the haunting. And this is where the world's most persistent and perhaps most curious ghost hunters enter the narrative. It's like having a perfectly logical explanation for why your Wi-Fi keeps dropping, but still suspecting it's actually your neighbor's ghost who just really hates your streaming service provider. Over the decades, as the legend of the singing specter grew, Piper's Opera House inevitably found itself on the map of paranormal investigators. These weren't the dramatic prime-time television crews, bursting in with night vision cameras and a crew of excitable psychics. More often, they were small, dedicated groups of local enthusiasts armed with more passion than budget. Imagine a small team, perhaps 3 or 4 people, unloading their well-worn equipment from the back of a station wagon. EMF meters with slightly flickering needles, bulky audio recorders, and a very serious-looking thermal camera that was probably state-of-the-art in 1998. Their goal wasn't to provoke or to debunk, but to listen, to observe, and to hopefully capture just a tiny, irrefutable piece of the unexplained. A common historical event in the field of paranormal research is the shift from sensationalist seances to more methodical, equipment-based investigations, a trend that gained popularity in the latter half of the 20th century. These groups were the quiet pioneers of this new approach. Their vigils would often take place in the dead of night, long after the last tourist had departed. They would set up their equipment in the hot spots, the star's dressing room, the balcony seat said, to be Eleonora's favorite and, of course, center stage. Then they would wait. The silence of the opera house, already profound, would become almost a physical presence, every creak of the old wood, every gust of wind sounding like a potential otherworldly communication. You can picture them, sitting in the darkness, whispering into their recorders, "Eleonora, if you're here, can you give us a sign? Perhaps a C-sharp, if it's not too much trouble?" The results of these countless investigations are as enigmatic as the haunting itself. The data they collected is a fascinating, if frustrating, collection of maybes and almosts. The EMF meters, would, on occasion, register slight, inexplicable fluctuations, particularly during moments when the investigators themselves felt a chill or heard a faint, unidentifiable sound. But the readings were never strong, never sustained, always just a fleeting blip on the screen. It's a strange but true fact that many paranormal research groups have extensive archives of such ambiguous data, EVP, electronic voice phenomena, recordings that sound almost like a word, photos with strange orbs of light, and EMF spikes that can't be definitively traced to a mundane source. These pieces of evidence are tantalizing, yet they always fall just short of being conclusive proof. Historians still debate the scientific validity of such evidence, often pointing to equipment malfunction, environmental interference, or the power of confirmation bias. The audio recordings are perhaps the most compelling and the most frustrating. On a few rare occasions during long hours of recording in the empty theater, investigators have captured faint, almost inaudible sounds that, when amplified and filtered, seem to possess a melodic quality. Is it the phantom aria of Eleonora, her voice too ethereal for simple technology to fully capture? Or is it merely the sound of a distant truck on the highway, distorted by the wind and the building's acoustics into something that the hopeful human ear interprets as music? It's like trying to find a specific face in a cloud. You can convince yourself it's there, but you can never be entirely sure. What is perhaps most telling is what the investigators don't find. There are no recordings of doors slamming, no captured voices screaming threats, no video footage of objects being thrown across the room. The evidence, much like the legend itself, is gentle, subtle, and profoundly non-threatening. Eleonora, it seems, is not a performer who panders to the sensationalist tastes of a ghost-hunting audience. She doesn't perform on cue. She is not interested in providing a jump scare for the cameras. Her manifestations, if they are indeed her, are personal, fleeting, and seem to occur on her own terms. It's almost as if she finds the entire process of being investigated a little bit vulgar. You can imagine her spirit, observing these earnest, gadget-laden humans from the wings with a sense of quiet, almost theatrical amusement, a spectral diva who refuses to audition. In the end, the ghost hunters always pack up their equipment and leave with more questions than answers, their ambiguous data adding another layer to the enduring, beautiful mystery of the singing specter of Piper's opera house.
You're still sitting in the vast, echoing silence of Piper's opera house, the inconclusive data of the ghost hunters fading away like a faint, staticky whisper. They came, they measured, they left with more questions than answers, unable to capture the true essence of Eleonora's gentle haunting. And perhaps that's the point. Her presence isn't something to be quantified or proven with blinking gadgets. It's something to be lived with, to be understood, to be unmanaged. This brings us to the most intimate and heartwarming aspect of this story, the unique, symbiotic relationship that has developed between the theater's living caretakers and its most enduring, if unseen, resident. This isn't a story of fear, car, or exorcism. It's a story of quiet coexistence, a testament to the human capacity for acceptance and even affection for the unexplained. It's like discovering you have a very quiet, very polite mouse living in your walls. You could set traps and try to get rid of it, or you could just accept it as part of the house's character, and maybe even start leaving out tiny crumbs of cheese. The caretakers of Piper's have chosen the latter. Over the years, the various people tasked with maintaining this historic building have all developed their own ways of interacting with Eleonora. It's a tradition passed down not in a formal manual, but through shared anecdotes and knowing glances. A new stage manager might be told on their first day, Oh, and if you hear singing, don't worry. That's just Eleonora. She's harmless. But she does have a flair for the dramatic. This normalization of the supernatural is what makes the atmosphere at Piper's so unique. The staff don't see Eleonora as a problem to be solved, but as a permanent, if unconventional, part of the team. A common historical event across many cultures is the development of rituals and traditions to appease or honor household or location-based spirits. From leaving out offerings of food and drink to simply speaking to the presence as if it were a living person. These practices are a way of fostering a peaceful coexistence. The caretakers of Pipers have developed their own set of these quiet rituals. Many have reported that before a big performance, they will go to the empty stage and softly speak into the darkness, something along the lines of, "All right, Eleonora, we have a full house tonight. We'd appreciate it if you'd be our good luck charm." They treat her not as a ghost, but as a respected elder of the theater, a spiritual patron saint of the performing arts. Some have even taken to leaving a single, fresh flower often, a lavender sprig or a white rose in her supposed favorite dressing room. A small, beautiful gesture of respect. It's a strange but true fact that in many historic theaters, there is a tradition of always leaving one seat unsold or empty for the theater's resident ghost. This act acknowledges the spirit's presence and respectfully invites them to enjoy the performance. While Pipers doesn't officially do this, the staff's personal rituals serve a very similar purpose. This relationship isn't just one-sided. The staff believe that Eleonora responds to their gestures. On nights when they've made a special effort to acknowledge her, they report that the phantom phenomena are often more positive and helpful. A misplaced prop might reappear in a more convenient location, or a faint, beautiful chord from her phantom aria might be heard just as the curtain is about to rise, a seeming nod of approval. It's a delicate, unspoken dialogue between the seen and the unseen, a partnership built on mutual respect. They don't try to provoke her for the benefit of investigators. They treat her with the same professional courtesy they would any living performer. Historians still debate the psychological underpinnings of such relationships, often pointing to the power of belief to shape one's perception of their environment. But for the people who work here day in and day out, the connection feels profoundly real. Imagine the current caretaker, a woman named Sharon, locking up the theater late at night. The building is dark and silent, save for the creak of the old wood. As she walks across the stage, she might pause, look out at the empty seats, and whisper, "Good night, Eleonora, rest well." And in the profound silence that follows, she might feel a gentle, fleeting cool breeze on her cheek, or catch the faintest scent of lavender, a silent, fragrant reply from the theater's most dedicated resident. But this isn't a frightening experience for her. It's a comforting one. It's a reminder that she is not just the caretaker of a building, but the custodian of a beautiful, enduring legend, a living story that she shares with a very special, very quiet partner. It's the ultimate quiet collaboration, a partnership that has lasted for over a century, ensuring that the magic of Piper's Opera House and the beautiful voice of its singing spectre will never truly fade away. You're still embraced by the warm, respectful silence of Piper's Opera House, a place where the living and the departed have struck a unique, harmonious chord. We've explored the quiet rituals of the caretakers, their affectionate acceptance of Eleonora, their unseen, spectral colleague. But there is one object within these historic walls that seems to hold a particularly strong connection to our singing spectre, a focal point for her lingering energy that is more personal and more poignant than any other. It is her dressing room mirror. This isn't just a piece of antique furniture. It's a portal, a looking glass that, according to legend, sometimes reflects more than just the dusty, empty room before it. It's like finding an old, disconnected smartphone that occasionally, inexplicably, flickers to life with a single, ghostly photograph from a forgotten past. The mirror itself is a beautiful, if slightly faded, piece of Victoriana. It's large, with an ornate, gilded frame, the gold now tarnished with age and the faint, green patina of time. The glass is thick and beveled, and if you look closely, you can see the subtle waves and imperfections of 19th century glassmaking. It hangs on the wall of what was once the star's dressing room, a small, intimate space just off the main stage. This was Eleonora's sanctuary, the place where she would have prepared for her performances, transforming from a simple young woman into the celebrated diva of Virginia City. Q can imagine her sitting before this very mirror, the warm glow of gaslights flanking its frame, as she applied her stage makeup, pinned her hair, and steadied her nerves before stepping into the spotlight. This mirror would have reflected her hopes, her anxieties, her triumphs, and her profound, quiet sorrows. Fit, it was, in a very real sense, the silent witness to her entire career, the keeper of her most private moments. It's a common historical event in folklore and spiritualism that mirrors are often considered to be portals or gateways to other worlds. They are reflective surfaces that not only show us our own image, but are also believed to have the capacity to capture and hold echoes of the past, or even offer glimpses into the spectral realm. The legend of Bloody Mary is perhaps the most famous example of this belief, but countless cultures have stories about the mystical properties of mirrors. It's no surprise, then, that Eleonora's mirror has become the epicenter of some of the most personal and unsettling phenomena reported in the opera house. Stories are not about terrifying apparitions leaping from the glass, but about something far more subtle and, in many ways, more profound. Visitors who spend time alone in the dressing room have reported seeing a fleeting, almost subliminal, change in the reflection. It's not a full-bodied ghost staring back at them. Instead, they might see the reflection of the empty room momentarily waver or blur, as if looking through a heat haze. Or, more specifically, they report seeing a faint, feminine silhouette, a shadowy, translucent form, standing just behind their own reflection for a split second before vanishing. It's the ultimate spectral photobomb, a quiet, "I was here," whispered from beyond the veil. It's a strange but true fact that many paranormal investigators focus their efforts on reflective surfaces like mirrors and windows, believing them to be more conducive to capturing visual evidence of spirits. Historians still debate whether these reported sightings are genuine paranormal events or simply tricks of the light, dust, and the human brain's tendency to find patterns in ambiguous visual information. Perhaps the most poignant and specific legend associated with the mirror is that of Eleonora's face. On very rare occasions, those who are particularly sensitive, or perhaps just particularly lucky, have reported seeing more than just a silhouette. They describe looking into the mirror and, for a fleeting instant, seeing their own reflection subtly morph. Their features might soften, their eyes might seem to hold a profound, ancient sadness, and for a split second they are looking at the face of a beautiful, melancholic young woman in Victorian attire before their own reflection snaps back into focus. It's not a separate face appearing next to theirs, but a gentle, ethereal superimposition, a brief merging of the past and the present. It's as if, for a single, breathtaking moment, Eleonora is looking out at the world through their eyes, a silent, curious observer from another time. This isn't a frightening experience, according to those who have witnessed it. It is, they say, profoundly moving, a deeply personal and intimate connection with the spirit of the house. It's a moment of shared humanity, a silent acknowledgement, soar across the chasm of time. You can almost feel the gentle, curious energy of Eleonora, not trying to scare, but perhaps just trying to see, to connect, to remember what it felt like to be alive. The haunted dressing room mirror serves as the most powerful symbol of her lingering presence. It is a quiet, beautiful, and sometimes unsettling reminder that the woman who once gazed into it, filled with the dreams and anxieties of a career, may, in some strange and inexplicable way, still be gazing out. You're still in that dusty, lavender-scented dressing room. The image of Eleonora's face, reflected for a fleeting moment in the antique mirror, still lingering in your mind's eye. We've journeyed through the history, the phenomena, and the folklore of Piper's Opera House. We've listened for the phantom aria, felt the subtle chills, and even considered the scientific explanations for it all. Now, as our spectral tour nears its end, we arrive at the most profound question of all. Why? Why does Eleonora linger? What is the true meaning behind her gentle, persistent, and sometimes clumsy haunting? This isn't just about a ghost in a theater. It's about the very nature of memory, art, and the powerful, enduring human need for purpose. It's like finishing a complex, beautiful novel and then spending hours pondering the author's true message, the quiet theme that resonates long after you've closed the book. Unlike many ghost stories, which are rooted in terror, vengeance, or a violent, traumatic death, Eleonora's haunting feels different. It lacks any sense of malice. Her manifestations, from the beautiful singing to the helpful prompting of a forgotten line, are not designed to frighten or harm. Even her clumsy antics feel more like playful quirks than aggressive poltergeist activity. This leads to the most widely accepted and, frankly, most beautiful theory about her presence. She stays not because she is trapped in torment, but because she is bound by love. A profound, unwavering love for the stage, for the art of performance, and for the one place in the world where she truly felt alive. The opera house isn't her prison. It is her eternal sanctuary. It's a common historical event in the lives of many great artists, musicians, and performers that they often develop a deep, almost symbiotic relationship with their chosen venue or instrument. Think of a virtuoso violinist who feels their violin is an extension of their own soul, or a legendary actor who refers to a specific theater as their true home. For Eleonora, Piper's Opera House was more than just a building. It was her entire world. In a rugged, often brutal frontier town, the stage was her refuge, a place where she could transcend the grit and dust and create moments of pure, transcendent beauty. The applause of the miners wasn't just approval. It was validation, a confirmation that her art, her voice, had meaning and power. It's a strange but true fact that many performers describe being on stage as a kind of transcendent experience, a moment when they feel most themselves, most connected to something larger. It's plausible that for Eleonora this connection was so powerful, so fundamental to her identity, that it simply couldn't be severed by something as mundane as death. Her spirit, untethered from its mortal coil, simply returned to the place where it felt most at home. It's like a dedicated gardener whose love for their garden is so profound that, even after they're gone, the flowers seem to bloom a little, brighter, as if still tended by an unseen loving hand. Her actions, when viewed through this lens, take on a new, poignant meaning. The phantom aria is not a cry of sorrow, but an act of pure, unadulterated joy, a simple, beautiful act of singing in the space she loved. The helpful prompting isn't just a random spectral event. It's the act of a seasoned professional, a fellow performer instinctively helping another to ensure the magic of the show isn't broken. Even her clumsiness can be seen as an endearing quirk, the gentle fumbling of a spirit so eager to be a part of the theatrical process that she occasionally gets in the way. She's not trying to disrupt the show. She's trying to join the show. Historians still debate the very nature of consciousness and what, if anything, survives after death. But if a part of our essence, our passion, our love, can leave an imprint on the world, then Piper's Opera House is a powerful testament to that possibility. The story of her lost love, Silas the Miner, adds another profound layer to this theory. While her love for the stage was her life's purpose, her love for him was her human connection, her anchor to the world outside the theater. His tragic death and her subsequent heartbreak would have only deepened her connection to the opera house, transforming it from a place of professional joy into a sanctuary for her grief. Perhaps her singing is not just for an unseen audience, but for him, a perpetual, beautiful elegy sent out into the darkness, a love song that echoes through the mountain where he was lost. This transforms her from a simple ghost into a figure of tragic, romantic devotion, a spectral artist forever performing a requiem for her lost love. It's a narrative that resonates with our deepest human emotions: love, loss, and the enduring power of art to express the inexpressible. It is this combination, the love of her art and the sorrow of her lost love, that makes her haunting so powerful, so beautiful, and so profoundly human. She remains not as a warning or a fright, but as a quiet, enduring symbol of a passion that not even death could silence. And as you sit in the quiet of her theater, you realize you're not in a haunted house, but in a monument to a love story told in the most beautiful, ethereal way imaginable. Still wrapped in the profound, poignant atmosphere of Piper's Opera House. The theory of Eleonora's eternal love for the stage settling in your mind like a final, beautiful chord. Her story, a tapestry of artistic passion and tragic romance, seems to be the perfect explanation for her gentle, persistent haunting. But as you continue to explore the dusty corners of this historic building, you begin to realize that her legacy is not just confined to phantom arias and spectral whispers. It has woven itself into the very fabric of the theater's identity, influencing not just the living caretakers, but also the stories that are told about this place, creating a unique and enduring legend that continues to captivate and charm. It's like a famous author who passes away, but their most beloved character takes on a life of its own, continuing to influence new stories and inspire new generations long after the final page was written. That the legacy of Eleonora has transformed Piper's Opera House from a simple historical landmark into a place of pilgrimage for a very specific kind of tourist. They don't come for the jump scares or the thrill of a terrifying encounter. They come for her. They come hoping to hear the faint, beautiful echo of her song, to feel the subtle, cool brush of her presence in the wings, or to catch a fleeting, ghostly glimpse of her face in the old dressing-room mirror. A common historical event in the development of tourist sites is the way a powerful human story or a compelling legend can become the primary draw, often eclipsing the site's more conventional historical significance. The story of Romeo and Juliet in Verona is a prime example. People flock to see a balcony that may have never even existed, all because they are so captivated by the power of the narrative. Similarly, visitors to Piper's are not just seeing a 19th century theater. They are stepping into the living, breathing story of Eleonora. This has had a profound effect on how the opera house is preserved and presented. The caretakers are not just maintaining a building, they are the custodians of a legend. They share her story with a mixture of reverence, affection, and a touch of theatrical flair, ensuring that every visitor understands the unique, gentle nature of their resident spirit. Tour isn't just about dates and architectural details. It's about her. It's about the tragic love affair, the unfulfilled career, and the beautiful, poignant idea that her love for this stage was so strong it transcended death itself. It's a strange but true fact that many historical sites with well-known hauntings often see a significant increase in visitor numbers and public interest. their paranormal reputation becoming a vital part of their cultural and even economic identity. Historians still debate the ethical implications of marketing a haunting, but at Piper's, it feels less like exploitation and more like a loving tribute. The story of Eleonora has also inspired a unique form of creativity. Actors who perform on this stage often speak of feeling a special connection to her, a sense of being part of a long, unbroken line of performers. Some have even incorporated her into their pre-show rituals, leaving a small offering or whispering, a quiet word of acknowledgement to her before the curtain rises. They see her not as a distraction, but as a muse, a spectral member of the cast whose presence adds a layer of profound depth and history to their own performance. It's like a young musician getting to play a legendary, old instrument. They can almost feel the echoes of all the great artists who played it before them, a sensation that is both humbling and incredibly inspiring. This living legacy ensures that Eleonora is not just a passive ghost, but an active, influential participant in the ongoing artistic life of the theater. Her legend has also become a cherished piece of Virginia City's local identity. She is their ghost, a symbol of the town's rich, dramatic, and sometimes tragic past. Her story is told in local diners and saloons, a piece of folklore that connects the town's present to its boomtown golden age. It's a reminder that beneath the quiet, modern-day facade of a historic tourist town, the vibrant, passionate spirits of the past are still very much alive. The legacy of the singing spectre is not one of fear, but of beauty, passion, and the enduring power of a great story. She has transformed a simple haunting into a work of art, a perpetual performance that continues to captivate and move all who are quiet enough to listen. And in doing so, she has achieved a form of immortality that perhaps even she, in her wildest, most ambitious dreams, could never have imagined. Her encore is, and always will be, eternal, here still breathing in the quiet, hallowed air of Piper's Opera House. The poignant truth of Eleonora's eternal love for this stage settling around you like a soft velvet curtain. Her story is not one of terror, but of a timeless, beautiful devotion. As our journey through this uniquely haunted space comes to its gentle conclusion, we are left with a final, comforting thought, the idea of an eternal encore. This isn't a restless spirit trapped against her will. This is a dedicated artist who has simply refused to leave her favorite venue. The theater isn't her prison. It is her stage, her sanctuary, and her forever home. It's a concept that transforms a potentially sad ghost story into a narrative of profound peace and enduring purpose. It's like imagining your favorite musician getting to play an endless, perfect concert in the most beautiful venue in the universe, forever. A truly wonderful thought, isn't it? The phenomena we've explored, the singing, the scents, the subtle movements are not cries for help or acts of desperation. They are the quiet, consistent rituals of an artist still at work. The phantom aria that echoes through the hall is not a lament for a life lost, but a perpetual warm-up, a sake for a performance that is always just about to begin. The scent of lavender is the lingering aroma of her stage perfume, a constant reminder of her presence in her beloved dressing room. Even her clumsiness, the knocked-over props and tangled ropes, can be seen as the endearing fumbles of a performer who is so passionately engaged in the life of the theater that she occasionally gets in her own way. She is, in essence, the ultimate resident artist, a spectral performer in residence who never has to worry about contracts or bad reviews. A common historical event in the world of theater is the idea of a ghost light, a single, bare bulb left, burning on the stage of an empty theater overnight. While its practical purpose is safety, there is a rich tradition of superstition surrounding it. Some say it's to light the way for the theater's resident ghosts, allowing them to perform on the stage after the living have gone home. It's a beautiful, respectful gesture, an acknowledgement that the stage belongs to them, to at Piper's Opera House. The entire building feels like one giant ghost light, a space perpetually ready for its most famous star to take the stage. It's a strange but true fact that many of the world's most famous opera houses and theaters have their own beloved resident ghosts, often performers or patrons who loved the space so much they chose never to leave. Eleonora is simply the most dedicated, and perhaps the most talented, member of this exclusive Spectral club. You can imagine her now, in the profound, velvet silence of the deep night. The living world outside is asleep, the sounds of the desert half quieted to a whisper, and the moon casts long, beautiful shadows through the tall, arched windows. This is her time. The stage is hers. Perhaps she walks from the wings, her spectral gown rustling with a sound no living ear can hear. She takes her place at center stage, the spot where she once held 1,000 souls in the palm of her hand. There is no orchestra, no audience, just the quiet, respectful presence of the history that permeates this space. And then she sings, not a song of sorrow, but a song of pure, unadulterated love for her art, her voice filling the empty hall with a beauty that transcends time and space. It is a performance not for applause, but for the sheer joy of the act itself. Historians will forever debate the truth of her story, and scientists will forever search for rational explanations for the phenomena reported here. But for those who have felt her presence, who have heard the faint, beautiful echo of her voice, the truth is simple. She is home. As you allow this final, peaceful image to settle in your mind, the story of the singing spectre of Piper's opera house transforms. It's no longer a ghost story. It's a love story. A story of a woman's profound love for her art, for her stage, and for the place that allowed her to share her gift with the world. Her enduring presence is not a curse, but a blessing, a gentle, beautiful reminder that some passions are so strong, some loves so deep, that they can leave an echo that resonates for all time. She is the eternal encore, the quiet, beautiful song that will forever haunt the hallowed halls of this very special place. And as you drift off, you might just hear it, a single perfect note carried on the night air, a lullaby from a very gentle, very talented ghost. And so our journey to the heart of the Nevada desert, to the dusty velvet-draped stage of Piper's Opera House, comes to its final, quiet curtain call. The stories of Eleonora, the singing spectre, have guided us through a history rich with the boom and bust of a silver town, the poignancy of lost love, and the enduring magic of the theater. We've learned that not all hauntings are born of terror, that some spirits linger not out of torment, but out of a profound and beautiful love for a place, a purpose, a passion that death itself cannot extinguish. Let the image of the grand empty opera house settle in your mind now. Fill the profound, peaceful silence that fills the space, a silence that is not empty, but is instead filled with the faint, beautiful echoes of the past. The phantom aria is now just a soft, distant hum, a soothing melody that blends with the gentle whisper of the desert wind. The scent of lavender is a comforting, calming fragrance, a gentle reminder of a graceful presence. The cool spots are no longer startling, but feel like a soft, refreshing touch, a final, quiet goodnight from the theater's eternal guardian. The clumsy, playful antics have ceased, the backstage now still and serene, at rest until the next spectral performance. There is nothing left to analyze, nothing left to fear. There is only the deep, resonant peace of a story that has found its beautiful, unending conclusion. Allow the weight of the day to drift away, let your thoughts soften and blur, and let the gentle, calming spirit of Eleonora and her timeless love song guide. you into a deep and wonderfully peaceful sleep. End of script. Sweet dreams.